Welcome back to Kitchen Danger, where our two chefs are working their hardest to cook a delicious dessert for our judges. Unfortunately, both of them are dealing with the dangers of the kitchen. Let's take a look at our chefs. Chef 1 is currently upside down, has one hand glued to his head, and is blindfolded. But let's be honest, Chef 2 has it way worse, as he is dealing with the psychedelics we put into his water during the break. Now, you may think that cooking show I just made up is a little bit extreme, but there exists a show that isn't too far off from the example that I just gave you. I'm talking about the cooking competition show, Cutthroat Kitchen.
Cutthroat Kitchen.
Cutthroat Kitchen takes the familiar format of a timed cooking competition and pushes it into uncharted territory. Hosted by Alton Brown, who I'll talk about later, the show aired from 2013 to 2017, spanning over 15 seasons and 200 episodes. But what sets it apart from other cooking competitions is its unique and sometimes diabolical focus on sabotage. Okay, I just have to say this real quick. I don't know what it is about these television shows and having so many seasons. It was only on for 4 to 5 years and it had 15 seasons. That's 3 seasons a year. It's like House Hunters. House Hunters is on like season 250 something, which is insane to me that there are that many episodes of that television show. It's crazy. I just thought I'd point that out. The show begins with 4 chefs, each armed with $25,000. This isn't just a prize they're trying to win, though. It's currency they can use throughout the competition. In Cutthroat Kitchen, it's not enough to cook a perfect dish. You also have to fend off the sabotage that your fellow competitors are willing to pay for, while also choosing how and when to dish out some chaos of your own. So let's talk a little bit more about the sabotages, because this is why I love this show so much, is the craziness and the chaos that can go on from spending tons of money to screw over the other chefs. So let's talk about some of those right now.
It looks hot. Be careful with that barrel there, girl. Careful your girl.
What truly sets Cutthroat Kitchen apart are the sabotages. After each round's theme and ingredients are announced, the chefs are given an opportunity to bid on items that they can use to make their competitors' lives more difficult. These sabotages vary greatly in creativity and intensity. Some sabotages are relatively minor, but still make the chef's job much harder, like cooking with small utensils or working on a tiny prep station. Others are far more severe. Imagine being forced to swap out your essential ingredients for something entirely different, or even cooking in a rotating kitchen. One chef might be forced to cook with one hand tied behind their back, while another might lose access to basic equipment like knives or cutting boards. The creativity behind these sabotages is a key aspect of the show's appeal. Watching highly skilled chefs adapt to these absurd and often unfair constraints adds a strategic layer to the competition that goes beyond simple cooking techniques. This episode I'm using, you can see some of these that happen. Some of the main ones and more common ones are getting your ingredients taken away for something less appetizing or harder to cook with. In this, it's the artichokes. Somebody gets dried artichokes, somebody gets artichoke hearts. So it makes it a little more difficult because these chefs always come in going, well, I've got all this stuff that I got from the pantry and I'm excited to cook, and then immediately lose that and they suddenly have to deal with something much more difficult. Another one of my favorites from this episode that I'm using footage from is when the guy has to cook his dessert in a saxophone. I love that so much. Those are kind of my favorite, where it really throws them over by not just taking away their ingredients, but making them cook in something in a vessel that just doesn't make any sense, like a saxophone. But now that we've talked about the sabotages, let's talk about how you get the sabotages and then how you dole them out to the other chefs.
1,000.
15.
$1,500 bid to Chef Jack. 1,600. Chef Louis takes the high bid back at 16. Looking for 1,700.
Each round begins with an auction. Alton Brown presents a selection of sabotages to the chefs, and they bid on the right to assign them to their opponents. The highest bidder gets to dictate the terms of another chef's struggle, and this is where the real strategy of Cutthroat Kitchen emerges. Chefs have to weigh the cost of winning a sabotage versus the value of saving their money for future rounds. After all, the ultimate goal is to have the most cash left when the competition ends. If you spend too much early on, you may have little left to protect yourself in the later stages, where the sabotages can be even more punishing. On the other hand, if you save your money but allow your opponents to sabotage you unchecked, your chances of survival diminish rapidly. I feel like you'll see all of these tropes within not only this episode, but many others, where people will spend way too much money in the beginning or way too much later on to where they're kind of screwed in the end. In this episode, someone spends way too much money on a bid. I think they go above $10,000. And when they do that, they lose the ability to protect themselves later when they don't have enough money to outbid someone else, meaning they just go ahead and lose instantly, and then, it kind of screws them over because they weren't able to protect themselves. I find this very funny, and my wife and I, especially my biggest frustration is when they spend way too much money early on. So it's like the first auction and somebody's like 10,000, and it's like one of the easiest things. It's like, oh, you can only cut with one knife instead of multiple, or like you may get a bad ingredient, but you can work around that. And these people are so scared they'll spend half their money within the first round, and it just peeves me to no end, but that's why I love this show so much. Now that we've talked about the sabotages, the auction, let's talk about them actually cooking, because that's the biggest part of a cooking competition show, is the actual cooking.
Red sauce with a burr mixer, and then I incorporate my bechamel together with that.
The structure of Cutthroat Kitchen is fairly straightforward. Like most cooking shows, there's 3 rounds, one chef eliminated after each round. The rounds are designed around a specific type of dish, anything from a classic comfort food like mac and cheese to international staples like pad thai. Chefs are given access to a fully stocked pantry, but the twist lies in the time constraints. They often only have 30 minutes or less to create a dish, and that's before any sabotage comes into play. Time management, efficiency, and adaptability become essential as chefs navigate the kitchen under intense pressure. Despite these sabotages, the chefs are still expected to create high-quality dishes. Each round is judged by a guest judge who isn't told about the sabotages beforehand. The judge critiques the dishes solely on taste, presentation, and technique, making it all more impressive when chefs overcome the sabotages and produce something delicious.
I've got one auction item that I think will interest you now. Let's have a look, shall we?
So I said at the beginning of the video, we're going to talk about Alton Brown and what his role is, so let's talk about him right now, because I feel like this show wouldn't be the same without him. A key element that makes Cutthroat Kitchen work so well is the presence of Alton Brown. Known for his scientific approach to cooking on shows like Good Eats, Alton plays a more mischievous role here. He acts as both a host and instigator, reveling in the chaos of the sabotages while still maintaining a sense of fairness throughout the competition. Alton's witty commentary and deadpan humor enhance the entertainment value, but he also plays a crucial role in keeping the competition running smoothly. His ability to guide the chefs through the sabotages and keep the pace of the show moving ensures that the audience remains engaged from start to finish. That's one of my favorite things about Alton Brown being on the show, is he is so intelligent when it comes to food and cooking. A lot of times while people are sabotaged and they're panicking and they don't know what to do, Alton's standing to the side going, well, if it were me, I would do this. Maybe not cook it at this heat, or because you have to cook it in a saxophone, maybe do this. He always has an answer for the sabotage, which I think is very interesting and gives you a point of view of maybe it's not always so hectic if you know what you're doing. So I think it's really cool having him as a host. And yes, his deadpan humor is incredible as well. So that's Cutthroat Kitchen. It's far from a typical cooking show. Its unique blend of culinary skills, strategy, and sabotage creates a viewing experience that is both entertaining and suspenseful. It asks its contestants to think on their feet, adapt to absurd situations, and ultimately find a way to present a dish that stands up to the scrutiny of the judges. Though the show may have ended its run, Cutthroat Kitchen remains a standout example of how far reality cooking competitions can push the envelope. It challenged not just the chefs, but the very concept of what a cooking competition could be. If you're a fan of cooking shows, but haven't given that one a try yet, it's definitely worth watching. Go watch this. It is the one cooking competition show that I can binge and just rewatch. I love it so much, and I hope you've enjoyed this look at it, the silliness, the absurdity of the show itself, and I hope you go back. It's on Hulu if you want to watch it, so go check it out. Thanks for watching my little talk about Cutthroat Kitchen, one of my favorite shows. I hope you enjoyed. If you do, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to know that you love it. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed the direction this channel is going with all the different things that I'm doing. So it won't just be video games. Sometimes it'll be cooking competition shows, or who knows what'll be next. But thank you for watching. I love you. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Bye-bye.